Guys, we're going to have a great episode today. Before we get into that, I want to thank you guys, the listeners, for all the support that you get. I want to remind you that you can reach out to me on Instagram. If you don't follow it at JScottOutdoors. Feel free to send me a DM. I love corresponding with you guys about your hunts and any questions that you might have. We're going to have a great episode. I also want to thank the sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com. Cody Nelson, my friend of 20 plus years, he's the glassing guru, the optics authority. He's the optics manager over there at GoHunt.com at the gear shop. You can reach out directly for info or for sales at 702-847-8747. You can also email him at optics@gohunt.com. He also gets texts from my listeners on his cell phone, 602-399-3699. Feel free to send him a text if you're looking for a certain tripod or binocular or spotting scope or rifle scope, anything to do with optics. Give Cody Nelson a call or a text. I want to thank GoHunt.com also and remind you guys that the GoHunt maps, the mobile app, mapping apps, are now available on iTunes and Android. They have real 3D. It's awesome 3D mapping on these mobile apps. You can get a free trial, a 7-day free trial, by going to gohunt.com/jscott. You can also check in the show notes. I'll have it linked up. You get a 7-day free trial. That gives you access to everything in the Insider, as well as let you look at the mapping apps both on the desktop and on your phone. You can also sign up by going to gohunt.com and just use JScott, and that's going to save you $50. You're actually going to get a GoHunt gift card, $50 GoHunt gift card when you sign up. So go check it out. Also want to thank Kuiu Ultralight Hunting. That's the gear that I wear on all of my hunts. Go to Kuiu.com to order the gear right there that are direct-to-consumer model. So that's the only place you can get the gear, as well as phonescope.com. Use the JScott21 promo code and you're going to get a 10% discount. Guys, let's get right to this episode. And again, thanks for listening. Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. I have got my friend Brian Rimsza on the line. Brian, how you doing?
I'm good, Jay. How are you?
Good. The last time we kind of got together, it was kind of pre-turkey season. You were headed off to do some turkey hunts yourself. I was headed to Mexico to go turkey hunting. How was your season?
It was good. It's always good. We hunted the White Mountain Apache with a bunch of my family, and then I hunted it with the Griegos like we always do, and it was a great year. I mean, that place continues to be amazing. We killed 20 birds in the 4 days we were up there, so everybody killed 2 birds, and then I killed a couple with my bow. But yeah, we had just a good time. I caught my first brown trout ever, so that was kind of a cool experience. But yeah, turkey season was good.
It's hard to believe that you caught your first brown trout. Usually once you do that, you become a junkie. I know I've pretty much devoted a lot of part of my life in the summers to chasing brown trout. They kind of get under your skin, and they're a really cool fish, so I'm glad you got to do that.
Yeah, it was really neat to catch one, and I'm not much of a fisherman, so it was a cool experience.
Well, I'm excited to have you on here. We're going to talk about the Arizona Bighorn Sheep application. We're going to talk about the units. We're going to recap last year. We're going to talk about some of the changes, go over some of the max point holder tags that went last year, and kind of do our breakdown that we normally do on sheep. I know I've gotten a lot of requests to do this podcast, and I know people, kind of wait to do their applications, and they get a lot of value out of it. So I appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us. I know you're pour over the numbers and kind of have a real good sense of where the tags go, and some of the units that kind of come up and go up and down with time. And it's going to be fun to kind of pour over that. Before we get into that, talk first for those people maybe that are listening that haven't listened for the last 5-6 years as we've done these breakdowns. How does the Arizona Game and Fish allocate, and how does the draw work for Desert Bighorn Sheep and Rocky Mountain?
So Desert Bighorn Sheep and Rocky Mountain Bighorn Sheep in Arizona are effectively considered the same sheep when you apply for the draw. You can mix and match your apps as far as a Rocky or a Desert, but they're not separate applications. So you have to pick based on a hunt code what you want to apply for. The thing that's important to understand is that obviously non-residents have a 10% allocation of the tags that they can draw. It's not a guaranteed 10%. They can draw up to 10% of the tags. And of that 10%, half of it can go to guys that have max bonus points. Most of the sheep tags drawn in Arizona by non-residents typically go in the random drawing. So the way the draw works is when you apply for sheep, basically they allocate 20% of the total sheep tag. So it's not 20% of a tag per unit, per hunt code, like it is for elk and deer in Arizona. It's 20% of the total sheep tags are allocated to those individuals with the maximum number of bonus points. So this year going into it, max bonus points is 33. There are 3 residents that have 33 points. There are no non-residents, and then it will dip down into the 32-point pool, which is kind of cool because it's not often you get to go down a point. So that's a neat deal. But in 32-point pool, there's 129 residents and 40 non-residents. So the long and short of it is those guys with 32 points, I mean, this year we're going to give 28 tags out in the bonus pass, which, I mean, that's 4 tag increase from last year. So if you do the math in 5 years, if you're a resident, and you have 32 points, you should have a chance to hunt sheep here pretty quick. If you're a non-resident with 40, one of the 40 non-residents with 32 points, you got a long ways to go. You just got to hope that your number comes up. You definitely have better odds than everybody else, but it's just a tough situation. So picking the units that you apply for wisely are super important. But once the Game and Fish allocates the 20% of those tags to those guys with the maximum number of bonus points, then they do the random draw, or the 1-2 pass is what the Game and Fish calls it, and they basically go through and start drawing people out until all the tags are gone. So that's kind of how it works. There's never obviously any leftover tags. The nice thing that Arizona does is that whether you're a non-resident with max points or a non-resident with no points, everybody has a chance to draw every year in Arizona. I wish the majority of Western states would take on the same philosophy, because it would keep people in the game longer, at least giving people a chance to draw. I know the odds are slim, but you at least have a shot and you have some hope. So, but if you're non-resident or a resident who doesn't have 30 plus points, the units you pick matter, and so that's what we try to help people understand that, because it's important to know what you're doing.
Even though the odds are slim, and we've talked about it before, even though the odds are slim, if you can up those odds sometimes by 50% just by applying for units that are less, let's say less quality, maybe a little less under the radar, maybe not as big of rams or notorious units. Would you agree? I mean, in circumstances, you can go from picks just by picking a better unit, maybe not doesn't have the highest quality of rams, but your percentage of draw can go up 40, 50, 60% just by kind of punching over the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that 40, 50, 60%, though, it's like 2 100ths of a percentage, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Or 2 1,000ths of a percentage. But, hey, it makes a difference. And, I mean, Arizona, almost every unit in Arizona has the potential to produce a Boone and Crockett sheep. There's a few units that we'll go over, kind of in the northwestern part of the state that don't tend to do that. But, I mean, very minimally, Arizona provides the best opportunity, one of the best opportunities, in my opinion, to hunt desert sheep. The only state that provides more tags and more opportunities is Nevada. And they also have great rams. But, it's important to know where you're applying and understand the draw, because every year matters. And you just never know when your lucky number's going to get pulled.
Yeah, for sure. Ryan, let's do a recap of how last season in 2021 kind of shook out.
The season, was a pretty good year. Last year we saw, I think there were 6 desert sheep that were killed that were over 180. That includes the auction ram, which is quite a step up from 2022, where we didn't see very many 180 sheep killed. I think, if my numbers are correct, I don't think we saw any. Hold on. Yeah, I think that there were only. There was an auction ram killed last year, so there were 5 that were killed in 2020 that were over 180. So last year we saw 6, so that was good. Total book desert sheep was 35, which is +2. Actually, it's 36 counting the auction ram, so it's +3 from the year before that. And then as far as Rockies are concerned, we didn't have any over 180 in 2020. In last year in 21, there were 2, so that's a step up. And then 170 to 180 Rockies, we had 8, which is a step up there. So, I mean, just in looking at the harvest data, there are there's a slew of 170 plus rams when you're talking desert sheep that were killed. So, I mean, they had it was a great year. There were some really good rams that were killed.
Well, if you look at the number of desert tags that are available or were available last year, it sounds like roughly about 30 of those were book or better. I mean, that's a third of the sheep killed that were book or better. That's pretty dang good.
Yeah, last year there were 106 desert tags issued. So, I mean, to have 35 of them meet that Boone and Crockett minimum, which is 168, that's pretty impressive. It kind of leads me into kind of an update on kind of some of the changes for 2022. Are you ready for something to talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of some exciting news. Arizona manages pretty conservatively for their sheep, and as they should, because, we've dealt with pneumonia, and we're still dealing with pneumonia in some of the northwestern units. But this year, we're going to have a total increase in sheep tags that is something we flat out haven't seen before. We're going to have an 18 tag total increase in sheep tags. So last year there were 106 desert tags. We're going to have 120 this year, which is a 14 tag increase, which is huge when you figure it's roughly 13 to 15% of the tags were increasing. So that's good. The Rocky tags went from 16 last year, and they're going to have 20 tags this year, which is a 4 tag increase. Again, nearly a 20% increase in tags. I mean, that's big. So what that does, which should be exciting for residents and non-residents, the residents now will have the ability to draw up to 14 tags, which is a 2 tag increase from last year. 14 is obviously 10% of 140 tags. So, I mean, that's an increase. Anytime you can increase the opportunity to draw a tag, that's a good deal. And then the bonus pass tags, or the max point tags, went from 24 last year to 28 this year. So that's a 4 tag increase for those guys. And 20% of the tags will go to guys with max. So those 28 tags are going to the guys with max tags. So, I mean, if you're in that 33, 32 point pool, this is a exciting time for you. I mean, if you're one of the 3 guys with 33 points, you're going to draw your tag, and it's just a matter of where you want to go. And I would tell you, my guess is you're probably, you could be 45 if you're 44, 45 if you're the youngest guy with 33 points, but most guys are probably going to be older. And I hope and assume that you have at least talked to an outfitter if that's something you're considering. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in Arizona to do that. But if you're not, at least talk to someone and understand where you're putting in for, because when we talk here shortly, Jay, about where the tags and the bonus pass were drawn last year, I'm frankly pretty surprised at some of the units, because last year the guys really had some chances to draw tags too, and some of the units that these tags went to are a bit surprising to me, because I know that if I had max points, there are a very few set of units that I would be applying for, and it would be very small this year, knowing there's only 3 of us there to draw those tags. So, I mean, those guys will have the chance to draw their tags this year. So, I mean, even if they want to stick to one choice, and hold out, they know they're going to draw this year or next year. So it's just a matter of what they want.
Brian, I think a lot of it comes down to when I hear from some of these max point holders, sometimes I feel like some of them really don't know and they don't pound over the numbers, and then they just randomly pick a unit and go, oh, I drew it. Like they didn't know they were going to draw it and put in for, what I would maybe call a subpar unit, and they draw it with max points. Well, of course you drew it with max points, But then there's also some that potentially just get tired. They get tired of applying, and they just kind of, almost like have fatigue over the whole thing, and they just want to get a tag, so they just put in for a unit and go with it. And then I'm sure there's some people that maybe just make a mistake. But it does kind of blow me away sometimes how people with that many points, sometimes what I would think, maybe what you would think would be lackadaisical, and draw a mid-tier unit, and they kind of throw it away in my mind sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's all a perspective of what you want to get out of the hunt. I mean, we're kind of nerds when it comes to numbers and stuff like that. And I mean, if you're a 70-year-old guy that's been putting in for 30 years, 32 years, you may not pay attention to it, and you may say, look, I live in Kingman, and I don't care if, the sheep up here aren't the biggest. I want to hunt my backyard, and that's cool. Like, sure. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, understand what you have. I mean, the auction tag goes for $250,000 to $300,000, and you have the chance to hunt the same unit that individual's going to be hunting. And I mean, those opportunities don't come around very often in life. Right. So it's just hard to see people kind of spoil it. And I mean, it's not spoiling it. It's all in the eyes of what you want to do. But it's important to at least know what you're doing, I guess, is the biggest thing. I mean, I hate for someone to put in and be shocked they drew a tag and they had 33 points. Like, there's only 3 of you, so of course you drew. Right.
Also, do a little quick math for us. I know where you got it, but maybe some of the listeners, when you're talking about how old someone might be, you kind of said that there was an age of in the low 40s. Obviously taking the number of 32, 33, and the 10-year-old. Talk about that real fast.
So basically 31, I mean, anyone who has 33 points in Arizona most likely has a loyalty point, and they have a loyalty point, and they probably have a hunter education point. So with that being said, they've been applying for 31 years. So if you do the math on the 31 years, basically 1989, 1990 is about where the point system started. And I happen to be I turned 10 in 1990. So I know that I would have max right now. And I was born in 1980, so I would have max right now. So I'm 41. So the youngest person, if they were diligent, they didn't make a mistake, they didn't screw up, would be in that 41, 42 range to have those points. But, they could be much, much older too. So it just depends, because that's when it started. I mean, if my dad had been building points and never drawn a desert tag, my dad is 65, 66. Oh, sorry, Dad, you're 67. But he would have max points and be putting in. So I mean, it's just dependent on where that is. And I want to see guys draw their sheep tags. I hate to see guys who love hunting who grow old and can't physically do it anymore. I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow for sure. So I mean, I just want the guys to draw their tags and have the best hunt possible.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of that, I think, and we've talked about it before on these podcasts when we're talking about sheep, and you're talking about being excited about more tags and more opportunities for guys to be able to go sheep hunting. I really think the Game and Fish needs to take a really hard look at broken horn rams, and rams that probably will never be harvested in anyone's lifetime, likely never harvested. Seems like every unit I go in, there's always a few broken horn rams, and I wish they could come up with some sort of solution where guys could, get a broken horn ram tag and go hunt those animals. Even if it was a basis of, they're worried, well, how will people know if they're broken? What will be clarified or classified as broken? I'm sure there's volunteers, Arizona Desert Bighorn Sheep Society. I'm sure there's people that would agree to go with those hunters and get some of those animals harvested, because it's a shame to see people that would just, literally die to have a sheep tag, whether it's a, fully horned, good looking ram, or just a broken horn ram, just to go sheep hunting. Curious your thoughts on that, Brian.
I mean, I think it would be nice to find a way to, capitalize on the broken horn rams, especially in certain units where that no one's going to shoot them. I mean, there's very few rams killed, if any. I think there was one that I noticed this year that had like 6 inches busted off that get killed. But at the same time, just because a ram has a broken horn and obviously no one wants to shoot him, he's still a breeding ram. You know what I mean? He's still going to be making lambs and stuff and doing that stuff. Now, if it's an old ram, or it's a sick ram with sinusitis and horns falling off, obviously there's different dynamics to that. But I mean, I agree that it would be nice to have that, and I would support that. I mean, I think that's something that the Game and Fish should take a look at. I know the Sheep Society is pretty strong when it comes to communicating with them, and I know there's discussion of it. I just don't know why it hasn't come to fruition. But I don't know of any states right now that do it.
Right.
I know Mexico does it, and Mexico, sells those broken horn rams for a much discounted price for, than what a full ram is costs.
Something else to mention too is the fact of we talk about opportunity, and it's great that there's more sheep tags. I say that I cringe a little bit. I know there's an argument that if you don't harvest those rams, that there's a potential that pneumonia could come in, sinusitis could come in, and really hurt some of those mature and older rams, and they're going to die anyway. I just want to make sure that it seems like a lot of times the Game and Fish, instead of just bumping up one tag or dropping down one tag, sometimes it jumps up 3 tags, or it seems like there's sometimes, and it's based on their class 3 and class 4, what they see in the surveys. But I'm always lean towards wanting to make sure that Arizona has quality rams and really good rams. And I know guys argue with me all the time, and that's fine. Everyone can have their opinion. I would really like to see Arizona Game and Fish not get too rambunctious and raise the tag so much that all of a sudden we lose our age class and lose our quality. And then, the other side of the spectrum is guys say, as soon as a ram's a class 3, that, we should be shooting those rams because they may end up, getting pneumonia and they all get wiped out anyway. I mean, I see both sides, but I think Arizona is the best state in the country for desert bighorns, and I hate to see some of these units bumping the tags up so much that the quality declines. And I know they're doing a good job, and I know they're keeping their eye on it, which is great. I just kind of caution my hackles go up a little bit when I see some of these units with as many tags as they have, because I know that the quality, the age class will come down, and I think that's unfortunate. But they've got a tough job to kind of balance everything, and they do a great job, and I'm not picking on them, and I'm glad it's their job and not mine. But I just curious your thoughts on that.
I mean, I agree. Obviously, we're in the game of trying to harvest an older age class, mature big ram, but not everybody has that same drive. And, to the Game and Fish's credit, 37A is the unit that comes to mind. When they jumped that to 6 tags, everybody was like, oh my gosh, like, they're going to shoot out all the rams. There's not going to be any big rams left. There's nothing, there's not going to be nothing left. Well, man, this year alone, out of the 6 tags, they killed 4 rams over 170, with the oldest ram being 11. I mean, and an average age class of 9. So, I mean, we got to give them some credit
Absolutely.
where credit is due. And I mean, I know you do that for sure. I mean, is it a little concerning to see, you know, the COFA units being basically doubled? Yeah, but the COFAs back in the day were amazing units, and they had the issue with the lions killing a bunch of sheep, and then the Game and Fish got in there and addressed that issue, and now it's come back. And, you know, so I kind of, you know, I'm on both sides of the fence on that. I think that Game and Fish has to pick the units that they really want to focus on maintaining mature, you know, I shouldn't say mature, but like big rams. And then, you know, there's some other units where they're going to manage more for opportunity. So you're never going to make everybody happy. I mean, I've learned that through the over-the-counter draw process, over-the-counter deer tag process. And I mean, but they're really trying to do good things and trying to do things right. And I mean, they've cut tags in units this year. You know, they combined the 15D South and 15D North and cut it by 2 tags this year because the pneumonia is still kicking those sheep's butt. So, I mean, should it be less tags? Probably, based on some of the guys that we know in there. But, you know, it's one of those deals where you're never going to make everybody happy.
Sure. Let's talk about where the max tags went this last year in 2021.
Okay. So in 2021, there were 16 desert sheep tags drawn in the max. And last year, if you remember, there were 32 points was the maximum number of points that someone could have drawn the tag. So the first tag last year went to 15C North, which is one of the ones that is surprising to me. It was drawn by a guy that had 31 points. He was in the bonus pass, but he was one off max. That's typically not a great unit, but he drew his tag. The second tag was drawn in 15D South, which is a unit that's produced some great rams over the years. I think this last year, we'll talk about it when we get there, but definitely had some pneumonia issues. I mean, we have some friends that spend a lot of time in those units and definitely saw some of that going on. So that kind of impacted that. 16A is the third tag. That was also drawn by a guy with 31 points. 22 South, which is the desert sheep unit, because now we have a 22 North, which is a Rocky unit. Saw both tags drawn in the max. I believe they were both drawn by guys who had 32 points. So, I mean, 22 South continues to be the one for sure guarantee unit that you absolutely want to stay away from if you don't have max points, because those tags are, people know what that unit holds and they like that hunt. It's a very unique hunt. So we'll talk more about it when we get there. 24B Wilderness, which is a great hunt. It's been traditionally very good. Had 1 tag drawn in the max and it was drawn by someone with 31 points. 24B North was a 1 tag unit last year. It's going to be a 2 tag unit this year, so it may change. But the 1 tag last year was drawn in the max. I believe it was the guy that had 32 points that drew that tag. 24B South, so not the wilderness portion, but the entire portion of 24B South, had 1 tag drawn in the max. That's a 2 tag unit. Traditionally, 24B South goes all in the max. It did not last year. 28 South had 1 tag drawn in the max. Typically, that's another unit that's been having both tags go in the max, but last year was only 1. 37A, the first hunt, both tags were drawn in the max. 37A second hunt, you had 1 tag drawn in the max. And then you had 1 tag drawn in max in 39 East, 40A, 44B South, and 45C. So of the desert units, the only units that saw all the tags go to max holders was 15C North, which is a 1 tag unit, 22 South, which is a 2 tag unit, and 37A first hunt, which is a 2 tag unit, and 24B North, which last year was a 1 tag unit, but it will be a 2 tag unit this year. When you move down to the Rockies, Unit 1 and 27 had only one tag last year. We'll have 2 this year. That tag was drawn in the max. Then you go down to the new South Fork, Unit 1 South Fork hunt they created. It was a 1 tag unit last year. It'll be 2 this year. It had the 1 tag drawn in the max. 6A last year, it was split off from 22 North. There were 3 tags. All 3 tags were drawn by max point holders. I'm not sure you're going to see that again this year. That unit's been struggling to produce even 170 rams, so we'll talk more about it. The 22 Rocky portion, so 22 North, had 1 tag drawn in the max. 23 24A, it was a 1 tag unit last year, had the 1 tag drawn in the max. It'll be a 2 tag unit this year. And then your 27 South, 28 North, second hunt had 1 tag drawn in the max. So for Rockies, Unit 1 and 27, Unit 1, South Fork, 6A, and 23 24A were all drawn by max point holders last year. I will touch on the tags that were drawn by non-residents last year just to give the non-residents kind of an understanding where those tags were drawn. It's also relevant to residents because when you take non-resident applicants out of the draws, it really changes what they look like, and the non-residents don't have access to very many tags, so they don't often draw in some of these units. But last year you had a tag in 15D North, a tag in 15D South, 24B Wilderness, 24B South, 37B. 40A is where one of the bonus tags went to a non-resident. You had 40B Tanajas, 41 West, 43B Second Hunt. One of the 44B North hunters was a non-resident who drew in the max. And then 44B South had a non-resident draw. And then 27 South, 28 North had a non-resident draw tag. So you had 1 Rocky tag go to a non-resident, and you had 11 desert tags go to non-residents. And of those 12 tags available to non-residents, 2 of them went to individuals that had maximum bonus points.
Brian, talk about the non-residents and how they have to apply for units that have more than 1 tag, and how we look at these numbers and see that in every single unit, it seems that there's, 20, 30, 40, 50 people sometimes and more per unit, non-residents that apply for units that are only 1 tag units that they literally don't even have a chance to draw. Go over that real fast.
Yeah, so in order for a non-resident to have a chance to draw a tag, there has to be at least 2 tags in the unit. So when we look at the draws, I extrapolate out the data, and I can see how many non-resident applicants applied. The only skew to some of the non-resident applicants is that if you were a resident at some point, lived in the state, and you bought a lifetime license and then moved out of the state, you show as a non-resident applicant, although you are considered in the resident pool because you have that lifetime license. But there's no way that some of the units that have, crazy amounts of non-resident applicants are all lifetime license hunters. So I would really encourage you as a non-resident to avoid a 1 tag unit because it doesn't benefit you at all to put in for it. And then I would also, if you're not a guy with max, and even if you're one of the non-residents that does have 32 points, I think there were 40 of them I mentioned, I would stay away from 22 South for sure. Everything else I think you can consider in play, but 22 South I would absolutely stay away from because I think the odds are super slim, and there's great units that you can apply for. It's just that one's going to be super tough. But it's up to you. I mean, next year you'll be the only guys left, so you could potentially do that, but you got to make the most of those opportunities, because in reality, if you divide the 40 hunters by 5 potential tags, if all 5 tags went to non-residents in the bonus pass that they're eligible for, that would be 8 years. But typically we see 1 to 2 non-residents draw a tag. So you can do the math. That's not very good odds. I mean, you could wait a long time and never get your tag. So be cautious where you apply. Try to avoid some of those better units, and there's still great units for you to apply to.
Brian, let's go through some of the units. We'll kind of do a unit by unit breakdown. Some of the units we'll spend very little time on, some we'll spend more time on. Starting out right at the beginning, units 9 and 10, the Cataract Canyon, it looks like they have gone back to a 1 tag. But the interesting thing is you've got October, November, and December, so it's a 3-month-long sheep season. I have not hunted that unit specifically for sheep, but one of the things you need to know about is those sheep kind of move in and out of the cataract, in and out of the Grand Canyon National Park, in and out of the reservation there a little bit. And the reason they have that season so long is because those sheep are not always there, and so you kind of have to be able to adapt to cyclical rams moving in and out. I do know that there is an opportunity there to shoot a pretty good ram, but it requires someone that's going to have quite a bit of time. Either just go in and get lucky and find one right away when the season starts, or be able to come and go, and keep looking and looking and looking until you can find those sheep that are in what we would call huntable area. And it looks like the total applicants were 313. That was up 51. In 2021, it was up 51. Is that correct? But yeah, they've dropped the tag though, so that those numbers are all going to be kind of thrown out the window. Historically, it's a pretty tough unit.
Yeah, no, I mean the draws that we're talking about are just showing for the first hunt from last year. Obviously, you're going to combine. I mean, if you're looking at both hunts last year, you had over nearly 600 applicants. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see what it does. I mean, it's one of the hunts that obviously non-residents can't apply for. The draws are not great for what you're going to get. I think people often think because it's a tough hunt, it's 3 months long, that the draws would genuinely be better, but that's not typically the case. Last year, hunters killed a 162 and a 146. Both rams were aged at 7. So, I mean, a 162 ram is a respectable ram for anybody on a desert sheep hunt, especially in that unit. So, I mean, it's doable. It's not a place that I have hunted myself, and not a place I put anybody in for, but I mean, just understand what you're getting into.
Next hunt is the Kanab Creek hunt area, 12A, 12B West, 13A. 1 tag. It was a 1 in 187. Total applicants was 329. I don't know much about that unit at all. What kind of rams did they kill there last year, Brian?
So that ram last year, if I'm looking at it right, was a 141 ram. That was just a decent 5.5-year-old ram. It's a tough hunt. And one thing I want to touch on, I'm not sure that I did mention it earlier. I just want to mention it again. The draws that Jay and I are talking about are not taking in. I removed the non-resident applicants out of these draws. So they're kind of a beneficial view for residents, because honestly, the non-resident draws doesn't make a bit of difference. But when you take out the non-residents, it kind of really changes the draws. It gives you kind of a perspective, because they're only able to draw so few tags on how good the odds are. I mean, they can change from year to year, but I just want to clarify that when we're talking about, yes, there were 329 total applicants last year for that Kanab Creek hunt, which is an increase of 120 applicants, but of those, 142 of them were non-residents for a 1-tag unit. So I took them out, and that's where we get the 1 out of 187.
The 12B hunt, it's two hunts. There's a first and a second hunt. 3 tags on the first hunt, 4 tags on the second. Now, some pretty good rams came out of that unit last year, and it looks like the dates are November 18th to December 8th, and then the 9th through the 31st. So that's split into 2 time frames there for that 12B East hunt.
Yeah, it's last year was a bomber year in 12B East. I mean, it was as good a year as you could have had for that unit, and I think it's notable to mention you had 7 tags there. None of them were drawn by non-residents, although on the first hunt you saw 809 non-resident applicants, and on the second hunt you saw 877 non-resident applicants. So when you take out those non-resident applicants because they didn't draw any tags, you're looking at 1 in 145 and 1 in 143 as your draw odds respectively. So I mean, they're not terrible. The thing that's important to mention is the bigger rams, not all of them, but the really big rams on that hunt were guided rams. There are a couple of different outfitters that guide up there. I think Mossback had 3 of them last year, and they killed a 180, a 148, and then a 175 ram. Additionally, there was a 164 killed and a 174 killed. I've heard the 174 ram was killed by a bow hunter, but I just haven't seen the pictures. I'd love to see it. If he happens to listen to this, send it my way. I'd just be curious. But that's a heck of a ram if it was killed by a bow hunter. And then you had a ram that was killed that was 167. So all in all, an absolutely stomper year for that unit. So, I mean, that's not always the norm. I mean, we've seen it in the past, but they killed a 180-inch ram out of there last year. I mean, that's
incredible. I think
damn
if you look at your numbers that we have here going back to 2015, Brian, there's only one other 170 ram killed in the unit at all, and last year alone they killed 3 over 174. I mean, two 174s and a 180. It's almost like, what the heck happened? Either I think there had to be some knowledge there of maybe a couple of older age class rams, some bigger rams that maybe the prior 5 or 6 years guys weren't getting to, or potentially something moved in there, because it's kind of crazy to see that you kill 3 over 174 and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years prior there's one that hits the 170 mark at all.
I mean, I agree. It's definitely very interesting situation to look at for sure.
Then we've got the Cottonwood Wilderness Unit 13A, 1-tag unit. 13A, that's a 1 in 118. Let me look at the rams. 157 was shot there. If you go back over the last 5-6 years, there was not a ram reported in 2020. There was a 164, a 163 in 18, a 164 in 17, a 164 in 16, and actually a 174 in 15. So really not a unit that's known as super high quality rams, but I do think a unit like this is one that you just get a couple years where one of those mid 160s rams slips through the cracks, and all of a sudden that's what happened in 15, where you've got a 174 that was killed.
Yeah, I mean 154. So I had a typo, Jay. The ram was 154, almost 155 that was killed. That ram was guided by Clay Bundy. That's kind of below the average. I mean, the average for there is pretty much mid-60s. So I don't know if it was an off year. Clay knows that country better than anybody. But, there's potential to kill a solid ram in there. I knew someone that had the tag. I think it was 18 or 19. They killed, a mid-60s ram, which is a respectable ram. Can be tough country to hunt.
All right, the next unit here is 13B North. Wow, 13B North really struggled last year. This year it's December 1st through the 31st. There's 3 tags in there, and last year...
nobody killed a ram last year.
Yeah, and they added a tag, Brian, so they went 2 tags last year. Nobody even killed. They added a tag. That makes me scratch my head.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I did see some data that the hunters only hunted like 2.5 days. I can't confirm that. But we know 13B North from our friends that live up there in St. George and stuff like that it's been on a downhill slide. I mean, the scores from last year reflect that. And I was very surprised to learn that no one killed a sheep. And then I was very surprised to learn that they added a tag back. So I don't know if they saw something during surveys or what, but I mean, our homegrown knowledge that lives in St. George has definitely been saying that that's struggling. The draw odds typically in 13B North are not great, but we've seen a dip over the last couple of years, and now we're back to like a 1 out of 122 type draw odds. I mean, you have and you're going to have a tag increase. So just be aware of it. I mean, I would steer way clear of 13B North unless I knew something. had personal knowledge of something that was going on in there. Just something to think about. I mean, it has produced 170 rams in the past, but obviously something's going on.
We jump over to 13B South. 13B South has one tag. Last year, it looks like the ram was a 139. Prior to that, a 164. 164 and 19, 156 and 18, 145 and 17, 148 and 16. Not really known for being a quality unit at all. And it looks like it's a 1 in 96, so draw odds are very, very good. It's probably in the top 5 or top 5 of tags to be able to draw as far as when you look at simple statistics.
Yeah, I mean, 1 in 96 is taking out the 92 non-residents that applied. So that that's where I get those numbers. And there's been some decent rams killed in there, but that's a tough unit. It's a long way from Phoenix. It's very deep into some of that strip country, and so definitely not an easy hunt.
15A, 15B, I don't really know much about it. It's a one-tag unit, 1 in 143. There were 55 more applicants last year in that unit. It looks like 138 ram was killed in there last year. Prior to that, a 151, a no harvest in 19, 129 and 18, 142 and 17. Looks like not a quality unit at all.
Yeah, it's not anything I know much about. I mean, I think you get a lot of your guys that live up in that Kingman country, maybe, who know that country, that like to put in for that. But I mean, it's not something that I've ever even considered or told anyone to put in for. So I don't have much more to add than what you already said.
15B West, one tag. 15B West, let's see, a 1 in 136. Last year, 15B West, a 142 ram in 20, a 150, a 163 and 19. And then it looks like a new unit, or they must have shut it down, or maybe they broke it out in 19, I think.
Yeah, they split up some units and changed some unit boundaries and things, so that's what's reflective on that. But I mean, again, the 140, the ram that was killed in there last year had 5 inches missing off of one horn. So I mean, he's almost pushing a 150 type sheep. He was 8 years old, so he's an older age class ram, just kind of beat up a little bit, obviously.
And then the next hunt is kind of interesting here. 15C, it looks like they've combined 15C North and 15C South. Now, this is up in the Nelson I units, up in the northwest corner, and it has been dramatically affected by the pneumonia, and I'm sure that's why they combined those two units. Historically, some pretty good rams used to come out of north and south. Just looking at this from what I know about the unit, I think it would be a pretty darn good hunt. You'd have a lot of country to hunt, but there is a reason that they combined C North and C South, where historically, if you look at some of these numbers, those are two historic units that have been very, very good for a long time. But that pneumonia, if you just look at the 139, 140 last year, a 142 and a 164, a 134 and a no harvest, a low 150s in 18, a 110 and a 165 and 17. The pneumonia has just wiped that unit out. I would say that probably a local up there that maybe have a lot of time, I would not doubt if they could probably find a mid 160s ram in that unit.
Yeah, agreed. The being combined is just probably totally related to the pneumonia outbreak. So I mean, we'll see how it plays out for this next year. But I mean, you're going to have a ton of country to look at, that's for sure.
The next unit is one that I know really well, 15D. They have combined 15D North and 15D South. And again, there's a reason they're doing that, and the reason is they've really lost a lot of sheep there. Ironically, though, there still has been some big rams that have come out in the last, 2, 3, 4 years since the pneumonia. But the numbers of rams and the numbers of dead rams, Craig Steele, Lee Murphy, found a bunch of dead rams in both units, but particularly in the south. So there's only 4 tags. I mean, I can remember, probably have to fact check me on the year, but just off the top of my head, I'm thinking like 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. I used to go up there for those sheep surveys. I can remember in 15D North where they surveyed, I want to say 585 sheep in one survey. And pneumonia has obviously cut that number way, way down. And I think out of that 15D hunt this year with 4 tags running the whole month, now that it's not split, I would bet that most of the hunting pressure is going to be in 15D North. And one thing I think that will allow D South to do is to recover. And I'm sure that's why they combined the units. But I think in a couple of years, that lower portion, that 15D South, is something that maybe to keep an eye on for a sleeper ram to come out of there in a couple years.
Yeah, I mean, they killed a 180 in there last year, and a low 70s ram. I mean, this year you're 161, 168, 155, 146, and they're all the rams that were killed were mature. I mean, they're 8+ years old, so it's just a struggle, to get through that pneumonia issue.
Yeah. The next unit we have there is 16A. Now, obviously, there's 16A South combined with 18B, but we're talking about the 16A. It's excluding that portion of 16A South and east of Big Sandy River. 2 tags, runs the whole month of December. That hunt is a 1 in 75 draw odds. So that is, I think, according to your numbers, Brian, the easiest sheep tag to draw for a resident. Not that it's easy, but when you break down those numbers and take out the non-residents, it's that 175.
Yeah, and then last year, I mean, the thing that doesn't account in that draw odds is that one of those tags went to a guy with max. So I mean, if you remove that, you're looking at 1 in 150, still relatively decent odds. But that's a tough hunt.
It's the Mojaves. I mean, there's like 7 different mountain ranges there, and there's not a lot of sheep. And I've hunted it. They're few and far between, but it's a place where a good one can slip through the cracks. It's always been like that, but it's also a place where you could literally go a week and not see a sheep.
Yep.
Okay, next hunt here is 16A South and 18B. Brian, I'll let you run with that. 2 tags.
Yeah, this is a unit that kind of came on the map back in 2018 when Jason Carter killed a slammer in there. So, I mean, we saw a bunch of people jump over there and get excited about it because he killed a big ram. And as we traditionally do, it's a good unit. It's got some good sheep in it. It can be a difficult hunt for some, but I mean, generally speaking, it's produced some okay rams. And obviously that 183 was a giant, but that's not the norm. The last year it had 2 tags. We'll have 2 tags this year. We saw a total of 464 applicants, with 232 of those being non-residents. So when you take out the non-residents, you're looking at resident draw odds of roughly 1 in 116. So, I mean, the odds are not bad at all. It had a dip in applicants last year by 67. Last year they killed a 165, which is a great ram, and then a 171. I believe the 171 was Craig Steele and Exclusive Pursuit that killed that one, if my records are right. So, I mean, those are good rams, I mean, you can't, both rams are solid. So definitely a unit to consider for sure.
Brian, something I'm looking at here, and I think I'm right. It looks like they've dropped 16B and don't have a hunt in there at all. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. Which that tells me the story right there with the pneumonia. I'm sure that I've heard Craig's told me it's really, really rough, and we hope that they recover. But again, that 16B is one to just kind of keep your eye on. And if in a year or two or a couple years they open that back up, there's a chance that all of a sudden a sleeper will be in there. If a ram gets left alone for 2 or 3 years, the right ram could really blow up. But that's unfortunate that they dropped it. But I'm glad that they're protecting that unit and pulling it out of the pool. The next unit is the Desert Hunt area in Southern Unit 22. It's the crown jewel, I would say, of Arizona for quality of rams. Unbelievable unit. Spent a lot of time in there. Looks like both tags go to max point holders, which they normally do. It looks like it's a 1 in 278 as far as draw odds, and a 177 and a 182 really nice rams came out of there last year. In 2020, 2 181 rams. 2019 a 179 and a 175. 18 a 171, 177. Historically, one of the best units in the state year after year. You've got, you can hunt off of Saguaro Lake, Canyon Lake, Apache Lake, everything as you're going upriver or up the lake, everything on your left-hand side there. And, what more can be said about 22? It's just a phenomenal unit.
Yeah, last year that 178 ram or 177 ram was killed by Randy Lundquist, so it's a friend of ours, Matt Lundquist. Obviously, was up there helping his dad. He guides that unit a bunch for Double H, and I mean that's a great ram. And then the 180 ram was a great ram. I know that guy had some help, I believe, from Bob Kine, who's a local guy that spent a lot of time in there. So I mean, it's a fun hunt. I tell sometimes people argue about like the physicality of that hunt, and it's like the reality of it is that if you want to ride on a boat for the season and look for rams and then go after the ram that you want to hunt, it can be a really, really fun hunt. There is some pretty rugged country in there, but it tends to always produce that 180 type sheep for sure.
For sure. Next unit is 24B North, another one of my favorites. Absolutely love that unit. That's the opposite of 22, so as you're going upriver on Saguaro Lake, Canyon Lake, and Apache, it would be everything on the right-hand side of the boat, right-hand side of the river or lake. That's in the Salt River lake chain there, and so it's actually, they are lakes, but that's it. The flow goes up and down every day, and it's basically an extension of the river there. Unbelievable unit. They've added a tag there. There's not a ton of country there. I think 2 tags in that unit is going to feel kind of claustrophobic. Historically, just some giant rams live there. You also got rams from 24B South, the wilderness, that come and go into that unit at different times of the year, and so that's always something to watch out for as well. I do think, having hunted it quite a bit, it's always been so nice to have 24B North and just be the only hunter in there. I do believe both hunters are going to kill nice rams, but I do feel it's going to feel a little clogged up, a little claustrophobic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a good hunt before, but it's super rugged. I mean, the hunter last year killed a ram that was 166. So I mean, a solid ram, but it can be some tough getting around for sure.
Next unit is Unit 24B South. It is also a great unit. 24B South has 2 tags. Now, the interesting thing that you need to know about 24B South is you can hunt all of 24B South, so you can hunt the wilderness and the non-wilderness area. Brian, we've spent some time in 24B South. It's one of the best units in the state historically over the last, say, 10, 15 years. Some really, really good rams have come out of there. I think a little bit the cream has kind of come off the top. As there used to be where you could go in there and look at 2, 3, 4, 5 rams over that 180 mark. I think we've kind of seen maybe kind of seen some of the better days of that unit maybe behind us. You know, as far as some of those real, you know, 180 to 185 type Rams, not saying there's not, because it's giant country, but you know, last year it looks like 179, the year before that a 178, a 176, 177 and a 167 in 19, a 168 in 2018, a 178 in 2017, and a 185 in 16. Great unit for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, that's a unit that takes a lot of looking around. It once was a really great unit. It's definitely a good unit. The 179 last year was killed by Eric Hunt and his crew. So I mean, the guy had some help from some guys. I know they put some serious miles in to kill the ram that they killed. So I mean, it's a tough hunt for sure. It's not something that's easy.
While we're on that, I'm looking at the game and fish regulations. We should just go ahead and talk about 24B wilderness. 24B wilderness tag. They've added another tag, so there's 3 tags in there. I've hunted that quite a bit. There is a ton of country to hunt. I do, again, just like in 24B North, I kind of cringe a little bit. I think it's going to feel pretty clogged up. I think, you know, yes, there's a ton of country and it's wilderness, but people kind of tend to hunt the 2 or 3 kind of easy to get to areas. And that's where most of the sheep kind of are, although there are places within the wilderness that, you know, they do migrate through and you can find some of those sheep. But 3 tags seems like a lot to me. It'll be interesting to see how that hunt shakes out. Ryan?
Jay, you're talking about 24B wilderness, right? Still?
Correct.
Okay. No, I mean, it'll be definitely an interesting experience with 3 tags in there. I mean, it'll be there's country that you can get away from, but you know, it's definitely quite a few tags. I mean, last year they killed some pretty good rams in there, you know, mid-70s type sheep. So we'll see what happens. It'll definitely have a tag, I would imagine, left for someone in a random position potentially. I mean, with 3 tags in there, I think there's definitely a shot at that. You know,
we've got 28 as the next unit, 2 tags. It's a 1 in 239 on Brian's stats on his odds. 1 tag did go to the max draw last year. 28, 172 and a 175 were killed last year. A 173 and a 152 and 20, a 175 and 169 and 19, and a giant 189 and 172 and 18. So it looks like they're, from looking at these numbers, the last 3 years in a row, well, 175, 173, 175, 189, like 4 really good rams in the last 4 years there. When you look at the biggest rams that were killed, it's definitely one of the better as far as quality units in Arizona for a chance at, you know, 175 plus type ram.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a hot unit for sure. I mean, the ram last year that was 175, that was Sam Derringer's crew. And that ram was a long ram. He just had kind of, I guess, average bases, which is slightly unusual, but it was definitely a solid sheep. So I anticipate at least 1 tag going in the max. It would not surprise me if 2 tags go in the max.
31, 32, 3 tags there, and in Brian's stats, a 1 in 299, 31, 32, that's Aravipa. Last year, a 175, a 156, and a 163. So pretty wide variance there between the smallest and the biggest ram. The year before that is a 158, a 164, and a 168. In 19, a 149, 169, 168. In 18, a big 180 ram and a 176, so 2 really big rams. interesting that it was in 18, it was a 2-tag unit, and it bumped up to 3-tag in 19. And you've seen, if you just look at the numbers, the quality kind of slip a little bit, but still 3132 is a great unit for sheep.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun sheep hunt with a lot of sheep to be seen, and sometimes when you're in those units where there's a lot of rams to look over, sometimes people have a hard time staying off the trigger. I know in 18, that 180 ram was an archery killed ram, and it was killed on a piece of private. But it's, 31 Arab Rifle was the unit in the 90s in Arizona, and, so the genetics are there. But you got to, the hunter, who the hunter is definitely determines kind of some of the success for sure.
The next unit we're going to talk about is 37A, and interesting, if you look at these dates, it's split up into 3 hunts, and it's November 11th through December 1st, November 25th through December 16th, and December 9th through the 31st. So they've kind of got this staggered out. It's 6 tags total. And last year, let's see, if you just go off of Brian's odds, 1 in 343, 1 in 352, and 1 in 330. And they killed some really good rams. They killed a 159 and a 175 on the first hunt, a 163 and a 171 on the second. And then, ironically, Brian, on the third hunt, they did the best and killed a 171 and a 175. And then if you look at the year before, it's pretty much the same thing, a 168, 178, 168, 175, 176, 155, and 170. And then even the year before that, when it was just 2 hunts, but 3 tags per, a 173, a 170, a 170, and then the second on a 163, a 176, and a 170. I mean, just producing all kinds of really good 170 plus type sheep. The question, I don't know the unit. I haven't been in the unit, but I just scratch my head and go, how much longer can it continue to produce 170 plus rams? I guess we'll see.
I mean, it's probably one of the big success stories if I'm Game and Fish, because when they split that in 2017, I think it was 2017 if I'm looking right. Actually, it was 2015 when it was one season, and they split it to 2 in 17, and then eventually to 3. Like, it's been a success ever since. So, I mean, it continually produces, 60 to 75% of the rams are over 170. I mean, that's unheard of. And it's pretty cool country from what I understand. I mean, I know the 2 biggest rams killed in there last year were killed by, guys that were outfitted. I think one of them was A3, one of them was Sundowner. So, I mean, but it's neat country. It's kind of rolling, more thicker country than kind of your barren, rocky country that you're used to with sheep. It's definitely rocky and got a lot of stuff going on, but you got more vegetation to hide behind, and the sheep have more vegetation to hide from you. So it's just a little bit different unit, but it's definitely a unit I would be stoked to have a tag in 37A no matter what the hunt is.
37B is the next hunt. It's there by Picket Post outside of Superior. 2 tags. Last year they killed a 168 and a 148. In 20, a 154 and 171. They killed a giant in 2019, a 189 and 161, 173, 170. Back when it was just 1 tag in 17, they killed a 174. A really good unit, not tons of sheep, but you've kind of got some transient sheep that kind of bump over sometimes from 24B, from the 24B south, and kind of move around there. Definitely, a place where a big ram can slip through the cracks. I wouldn't say tons and tons of country to hunt, but definitely kind of choppy country. So definitely some rams. A ram could slide through there. It wouldn't surprise me over the next handful of years if another, high 70s, low 80s ram gets killed there.
Yeah, I think what's most interesting to me is that in 2019, they killed a giant. So in 2020, we saw a huge increase in applicants because they killed a giant in 19. And then this year, the applicant pool dropped, by 394 total applicants. So it kind of went back to normal. Once the shiny penny was gone, everybody vacated the unit. So it's just kind of funny how that works. I mean, it's something to pay attention to when you apply. You know, if there's a big ram that everybody knows about killed in a unit, you're going to see an increase in applicants, and it can be considerable.
Sure. Next unit is 39 East. That's east of Old Highway 80, excluding Buckeye Hills Regional Park. 39 East last year was a 1 in 156. It looks like one of the max point holders applied for 39 East and drew it. Last year they killed a 165 and a 159. The year before that, when it was just it was one tag, or maybe just one ram got killed. It was a giant 179. Prior to that, a 171 and 163, and then before that, a 148, 163, 170, and 156, going all the way back into 2015. Again, that's a unit that, you know, it doesn't surprise me that a big one every once in a while slips through the cracks and gets shot every couple of years. I was kind of surprised 2 years ago when they did kill a 179. That's just a phenomenal ram. Kind of crept up on people's radar, but then last year, you know, back down to 165 and a 159, which it kind of always was, kind of a, you know, high 50s, low 60s unit for sure. I think it's nice being close to Phoenix, for someone, you know, local in Phoenix to draw and be able to get out there and go scouting quite a bit.
Absolutely.
39 West, 2 tags. 39 West last year, 178 and a 164. The prior year, 163, 162, 172, 167, and then 153, 164, a 164 and no harvest in, that would be 17, and 153, 161, 162, and 140. So a bomber. I know the guy that shot the 178, just an absolute beautiful ram in 39 West there. Historically, you know, quite a few sheep, pretty good hunt. Always is a pretty decent hunt. It's always been one of those that you could find in upper 60s, you know, maybe a 170 type of ram there. Good unit.
Yeah, that ram that Dietrich killed was a giant for sure, and I mean, there's some good rams in that unit based on some of the videos from last year. So I mean, it definitely could produce another really good ram.
40A, one tag in 40A there. 40A, this is a decrease, so it went from 2 tags to 1, so now it is not eligible for non-residents. So if you've been applying for 40A as a non-resident, make sure to take 40A off your list. There's only 1 tag now. Last year in 2021, one of those tags, or the only tag, went to a non-resident, or excuse me, went to a max point holder, didn't it?
Yeah, so the guy who drew, that was successful in harvesting a ram as a non-resident, who drew as one of the max point holders with 31 points.
Okay.
So, and that he went guided. Again, Eric and his crew, ADO, guided him to that 171. So I don't have any. I believe the other hunter did not harvest because it's not listed on the Game and Fish report. So I don't know what they're seeing down there, but obviously it's something that has changed what they thought of it. But I think most notably, obviously, it's a unit that has been considered and has traditionally had some non-resident straw tags in there pretty regularly. But remember, next year, you won't have access to it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a unit that borders the reservation, and you do see quite a bit of illegal activity, so people need to keep that in mind, that, you know, there's some safety issues there. Something, Brian, you bring up about Eric's crew guiding that ram, just want to point out they had a phenomenal year last year across the board. Their guides, they harvested some really nice sheep, did a really good job there for sure.
Absolutely.
Next unit here is 40B Gilas. There's 4 tags, 40B Gilas. Last year there was a big ram, a 179, a 154, a 158, a 162. And then the year before, another great year, a 170, a 175, a 155, and a 159. A 171, 164, 157, 160. In 2007, or excuse me, 18, there was a 153, 165, 157, 156. So if I just look at these numbers, that unit, the Gilas, it's kind of trending up. There's been some really good rams, and then that 179 ram that got killed. One thing to point out, so this is the first year that the Arizona Game and Fish has done, the trail camera ban. And it'll be interesting, in a lot of these western desert units, guys were able to use trail cameras and to get inventory of the rams and of the sheep in the unit, which I am against the trail camera ban and wish they would still let them use trail cameras for a number of reasons. We won't even get into all that. But it will be interesting to see over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years how not being able to use trail cameras and being able to keep inventory on some of these units in the western desert, which are very sparse, not a lot of sheep, but if you're able to have cameras run all year, you can kind of keep an inventory. It's going to be interesting to see how the quality, if it goes down, which I'm gonna probably make an argument that it won't surprise me if the numbers kind of tick down a little bit because of the lack of knowledge that can be gathered over those trail cameras. So it's just an interesting point to point out there in the western deserts.
Yeah, I think that it's tough because I think that the problem with the trail camera ban is that the trail cameras allowed individuals to hunt a particular older age class animal because they knew that animal was there. When you know the animal's there, it's a lot easier to pass up a good ram to hunt for a great ram when you have 30 days. Sure. So it's just a tough dynamic. I mean, you're going to see it in units, sheep units out in the western Arizona. You're going to see it. It's going to play into some of the bucks killed on the strip, and I mean, there's a whole different sets of arguments to deal with trail cameras. But there is a benefit to them, and it's unfortunate that we went into a position where they're no longer be able to be used at all.
Yeah. Next hunt is the Mohawk Coppers 40B 2 tags. If you look at Brian's odds of it's 1 in 103, it's actually, I would say in the top 7 or 8 units to potentially get a tag and draw a tag. Brian, I'll let you go over the quality and the rams they shot last year.
Yeah, the Mohawk and the Coppers, I would say the unit's trending up. I mean, I understand, last year 158, 175. In 2020, both were 154 type sheep, but I know the hunters. I know the one particular hunter on that, and to kill a sheep at all was a heck of a feat. To kill a 154 ram was an extreme feat. So, I mean, the potential to kill a good ram in the Mohawks is there, but it takes the right hunter. There's not a ton of sheep. You're going to spend some days looking around, but you can definitely do it. Draw odds were trending down last year as far as it saw a decrease in applicants by 255 total applicants. You saw a huge dip in the number of non-residents that applied. So, I mean, I wouldn't be upset if I drew a Mohawk tag at all. I think it can be done, and it can even kill a good ram there.
Brian, I want to take just a quick second here to tell the guys about the Go Hunt Explorer program, the Go Hunt maps. If you're already a Go Hunt Insider member, you already have full access to the maps, but they have also broken out what they're calling the Explorer, and that's where you can pay $50 and get all 50 states and have your Go Hunt maps under the Explorer. The interesting thing right now, they're doing a Memorial Day promo, and if you use the JScott50 promo code, you're going to pay $50, but you're going to get $50 back in Go Hunt Gear Shop points, and you're going to have a full year access to the Explorer Go Hunt maps for all 50 states. So it's not just one state for $50. It's all 50 states for $50, but you get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card back. You guys use the JScott50 promo code. It's basically like getting the maps for free because you get that Gear Shop card back for $50. So check it out. Brian, let's jump to the 40B Tanaha Altas, two tags, a 1 and 187, a 172, a 154 were killed last year, a really good ram the year before, a 179 and 168, a 170 and 168 in 19, a 164, 163, a 173, 177, all the way back in 18, a 16, a 176 and 155, and a 173 when it was just a one tag unit back in 15. Tanaha Altas, I don't really know a lot about it, but historically there seems like there's always a pretty good one that comes out of there.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's definitely a unit that produces, you know, a good ram. And some of those bigger rams have definitely been killed with the help of outfitters and people putting some extra effort into it because it can be some pretty desolate country. But definitely a unit that can produce a 170 plus every year.
41 East, the Eagle Tails, two tags. If you look at Brian's odds, a 1 and 169. 41 East, last year a 145 and 163. The year before did a little bit better in quality, a 172 and 168. In 2019, a 160 and 143, two 158s, a 160 and a no harvest. In 17, a 164 and a no harvest. In 16, and a 148. The Eagle Tails has a bunch of wilderness area. There are some easier parts to get around. There's some harder parts to get around. I think the Eagle Tails has a chance to kill a book ram for someone that really can spend a bunch of time in there and, you know, might have some help to guys out scouting and looking around for them. Definitely close to town, close to Phoenix. So if you're a Phoenix resident, it's definitely one that I would kind of keep my eye on for sure.
Absolutely.
41 West. 41 West is, let's see, west of Dateland, Palomas, Harquahala Road, Clanton Hills Road, and that portion north of El Paso Gas Pipeline and west of the AT&T Frontage Road. There's two tags in 41 West. Historically, Brian, 41 West, they've done really well. Your odds, if you look at it, it's a 1 and 132. 41 West. Last year they did really well, a 178 and a 172, so it's two really good rams over 170. And if you go back, you know, there's a 175 the year before, a 179, a 184, a 178. So I mean, this is the 41 West is no secret. There can be a good ram for sure taken out of that unit, and definitely if you're a high point holder, 41 West should be one that you're looking at pretty hard.
Yeah, 41 West has been doing nothing but trending way up. I mean, last year Eric Hunt's crew and ADO killed that 178, and they've killed several really good rams in there over the last couple of years. I would say they definitely have a good inventory on what's there. So if you're someone who's going to hire someone and looking and have max points, I would definitely talk to Eric and crew before I applied, especially if you're one of the three guys with max, because if you're going to draw, you want to solidify that stuff in advance.
42 44A East. This is a unit that I've spent a little time in. I like this unit. It's two tags. It's close to Phoenix. Last year it was a 1 and 180. Last year the rams that were killed were a 151 and 166, a 160 and a 167, and then it was a 168, a single ram killed in 2019, a 175 in 18, a 167, a 165, and a no kill and a 168 in 2015. There's quite a bit of country to hunt. There's some kind of wilderness area that's tough to get into, tough to access, but then there's also some really easy spots to hunt. I like this unit.
Yeah, it's definitely a unit that I definitely apply like some people for because of the fact that it's close to the valley. I think there's potential to kill a really good ram in there, and it's nice to only have 2 tags in there. So
let's see, 43A, 1 tag. 43A historically produces a pretty good sheep. 43A last year, 172, 171 the year before, 172, 158, 149, 164, 172. So the last 3 years has been a 170 plus ram, which is good. There's only 1 tag in there. 43A is one that, with my own personal tag, I look at because I like the fact there's only 1 tag and I would be the only hunter in that unit. So it's historically a unit that I'm pretty high on. If you look at Brian's stats, it's a 1 in 160. So, not great odds, but I like the fact that there's there's only 1 tag, and the last 3 years there's been a 170 plus. It kind of borders a reservation there, so there's room for sheep to kind of go on the reservation and be able to come back and have potential for those pretty good rams. Next hunt is 43B. Brian, I'll let you run with 43B.
So 43B, traditionally big unit. You can hunt a lot of different places on the unit. There is some military restrictions on a good chunk of the unit that just restrict on some of the things you could do. The access is typically not an issue. Always has quite a few tags in the unit and genuinely always produces at least a book type sheep. So this year, it'll be interesting because instead of having 2 hunts, they're going to be combined into 1 hunt with 8 permits. So that obviously is going to do a couple of things. One, it's going to be a little bit crowded, I would imagine.
A little bit?
Yeah. And, people have high expectations and tensions can be high when you're, have a sheep tag in your pocket. So understand that. We will probably see a huge influx of non-resident applicants because it has 8 tags. And we'll probably see a huge influx of applicants overall that apply. Last year, between the 2 hunts, the first hunt had 1,035 applicants. The second hunt had 1,192 applicants. I don't see anywhere where any non-residents drew the tag based on the information that I have. So the draw odds, when you take out the non-residents, become pretty darn good for us residents when there's so many tags. It's a unit that you can definitely kill a sheep. You will kill a sheep on it. You will have to look at a lot of sheep, and you will have to know what you're looking at if you're going to try and kill something big. Having the help of an outfitter can help some there. There are several guys that guide that unit. I'm not sure on these particular rams who was guided in there last year. I think ADO had the biggest ram killed in there. I think was ADO, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was 166.5 was the biggest ram killed in the unit last year. And then everything after that's a 160, 157, a couple of 155s, a 156, and the smallest ram was a 146.5. So it'll be interesting because when you think of drawing a sheep tag, you kind of think of having the whole place to yourself. Well, 8 sheep hunters in a unit, you're not going to have the place to yourself. You're going to see other people because every sheep hunter brings 4 or 5 people to help them, if not more. And then you're talking about now a unit that's not terribly far from Phoenix, so more inclined for people to come help. So just be aware of it. Definitely a tag to consider if you don't have a lot of points and you're looking to just get a tag. Not a tag I would consider if I was a max point holder. Just my 2 cents on that anyway. But yeah, it should be interesting next year. I'll be keeping an eye on that to see kind of what rams are killed for sure.
44A East, Granite Wash Mountains, Harkivar, and Black Mountains north of US Highway 60. There's 2 tags. If you look at this unit, historically, there was one really big ram shot, say in the last 6-7 years. But historically, it's kind of a mid-150s. So last year was a 156, 157. The year before that, a 114, a 159, a 160, 163, a 179. That's that big ram I was talking about, and a 143. The year before that, a 166 and a 72, 161 and a 149. Historically, not super high quality. It's a pretty tough hunt. The hunt odds last year, there were 488 total applicants that applied, 1 in 111 on the odds. Interesting, it was a bump up change in applicants plus 181 for last year, so trending up. Obviously open to non-residents, not a great quality unit, but a decent ram. Could slip through the cracks there. Not one that's really on my radar. Next unit is 44A West. 44A West, 1 tag unit. 44A West, let's see, last year a 182 ram was killed. Prior to that, it was really struggling, and it was a 157, a 159, a 173 was killed in 18. There was no tag in 17, a 161 and a 151 prior to that. And I think that's a perfect case right there where, a couple years went by where, a few rams were killed and one was able to slip through the cracks, and a big giant, 182-inch ram. If you look at 44A West, it's a 1 in 167. There were 206 total applicants for 44A West.
Yeah, and it's worth noting on A West, that's the biggest ram I believe to ever come out of the unit, and that ram was guided again by ADO and Eric Hunt and their crew. So I mean, that's not just your DIY guy going in there and lucking into a giant ram. Odds are those guys did a ton of work and knew where that ram was at. So it's just something to be. I know they killed a big ram in there, and we always see an influx of people that apply in units where a big ram gets killed the year before. But understand, that's some intimate knowledge of the unit that went into killing that ram.
44B North. 44B North, I'm actually happy to see that they dropped that back down to 2 tags. Last year, it was 3 tags. They dropped it to 2. Last year, there were 1,410 total applicants, a 1 in 226. Last year in 44B North, they killed a 172, 2 big rams, a 180 and a 179. Historically, I've guided in the unit several times, and I always call it kind of the country club of sheep hunting. It's really good access by roads all the way around. You can pretty much access everywhere by road and kind of be looking at either the front side or back side of the mountains. There's not very much country where you can kind of get away, if you will. But historically, it's had a lot of sheep. It's had some really good sheep. It's always where, you can usually go and find a 170 plus type ram. I was happy to see that they dropped the tags back from 3 to 2, and hopefully we can maintain that as one of the premier units in Arizona. But the Plomosas historically have been just a great hunt, and 44B North has always been at the top of my list when I look at quality units in Arizona.
Yeah, I would be interested in this unit, especially the fact that they cut the tags back, cut 1 tag out of there. I mean, it could be a really, really fun hunt. I always encourage guys that have a lot of points that are bow hunters to consider this unit, or if you have a lot of points and you're physically, limited in your mobility, I point guys this direction. I would expect that both tags will go in the max pool this year, but I could be wrong. But it's kind of what I would expect.
44B South, they bumped it up 2 tags, so there's 4 tags. Last year there were 1,233 applicants total, 1 in 178. One of the tag holders last year was in the Max Point pool. I cringe when I think I've hunted 44B South quite a bit, and it's claustrophobic with 2. I cringe thinking about four hunters at the same time. Again, it's kind of like 43B with 8 hunters. That's a lot of people. 44B South, 4 people in the unit, all on opening day. That there's just not that much country. Last year they killed a 137 and a 176, a 180 and a 168, a 181 and a 176, a 173 and a 169. 165, 169, 170, 178, a no harvest, and a 174 and 15. They saw enough rams in the survey to bump it up to 4. This is one of those that I think is a little knee jerk. I wish it would just bump up 1 and then continue to bump up, but to double it, I just think it's going to be, there'll be some good rams killed. But as far as experience, you're going to have guys on top of guys, and it's not one of my favorites to see. When I opened the regs and saw that they upped it by 2, I think it's going to be cloggy for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a unit that I have interest in hunting with my family members, but now I think there are going to be some negative interactions when you put 4 people in there, at the same time. I mean, I personally think that if you're going to do 4 tags, why not just split them into 3-week seasons, 2 and 2, so it's not so congested. But I suspect they'll produce another 180 type sheep in there, so I mean, it's definitely going to be something that's doable, but it could be very cozy.
I'll let you tackle the COFAs, 45A, B, and C. Dive into those.
Yeah, the COFAs, back when I had my tag in 97, the COFAs were kind of the cream of the crop back in the day. They were really, really good. And then they had kind of a bunch of sheep get killed by lions and stuff like that, and the Game and Fish has addressed those issues now, and I believe the recent survey at the COFAs show over 900 sheep on the COFAs themselves. So what we're seeing is a pretty substantial tag increase from last year, and it's going to be a split hunt structure, which I can at least support the split hunt structure because I think that's a good thing for that. So 45A, you'll have 8 hunters in there this year. It's 2 hunts of 4. Traditionally, last year I believe there were 3 tags in there last year, so it's been a good unit. It can produce a 170 type sheep. The 45A portion is definitely a tad bit more rugged than some of the other units of the COFA, so it can require a little bit more to get around in the unit, and the sheep tend to hang on the boundaries of 45A and 45B at times, so it can be something that's frustrating, I guess, a little bit, but it's a good unit. It's definitely a place to consider for shooting, a mid-60s ram. Last year they killed a 171, a 157, and a 164, so definitely a solid sheep for sure. We'll go into 45B next. Last year 45B had 4 tags. I actually had a friend that had the tag last year, had a good hunt. It's going to go into a split structure, which will be 5 tags, so it'll be an overall tag increase of 1 with 2 hunts. The first hunt will be 3, the second hunt will be 2. This, of all the COFA units, is a little bit more accessible, a little slightly physically easier to get around in than some of the others. The rams killed in there last year, I guess, are a little surprising, I guess. You had a 157, a 140, a 127, and then you had a 150 or a 175-inch ram that was guided by Double H, and that crew there, those guys really know how to get after it. I know Matt Lowenquist and Double H has had hunters in A and B over the last couple of years, and they've killed book rams in there every year. I know Matt had a hunter in B last year, killed a book ram. So if I'm looking for the biggest possible sheep in that unit, I'm definitely going to lean toward looking to talk to someone and hire someone if I have the ability to do it. But I know for a fact that shooting a 127 or a 140 is not indicative of what's in the unit. So keep that in mind. Last year's draws were 1 and 131 in 45B. It will change for sure with the hunt structure and the split. So just keep that in mind. We'll go into 45C, which is part of the Copa National Wildlife Refuge, but the mountains are actually the Castle Domes. I'm pretty familiar with this unit because I had my personal tag in there in 97, although it was a long freaking time ago. Huge tag increase. Going from 4 tags to 9 tags is pretty drastic, and it'll be a split hunt, so at least you have that going for you. I can tell you when I had my tag, I believe there were 5 hunters in there, and it wasn't terrible, but we did have some other hunter interaction, nothing that was too negative. This unit, there's the Yuma Proving Grounds, which is, military land is restricted to any vehicle access, so there's some country that you can really work to walk into and get away from people. There's definitely limited road access in some of this unit. I'm interested to see how it goes because last year it was 165, 158, 155. So nothing that I would consider exceptionally big. I do know that there's been some good rams killed in there. The last 170 ram was when it was a two tag unit, and it was in 2016. So, it's I'm interested at the tag increase, but like I said, they surveyed over 900 rams in the COFAs. So
900
obviously
sheep,
they feel
900 sheep.
I'm sorry, 900 sheep. Thanks for clarifying that. 900 rams would be crazy. But so it'll be interesting. But the draws in 45C traditionally last year, if you take out non-residents, was 1 and 114. Last year you had a guy with Max who drew the tag. So just something to think about. It's a good hunt. I would put in for it if I didn't have Max. But it'll be interesting to see what numbers we're talking about next year when we do this podcast.
All right, 46A east of Growler Wash, Cabeza Prieta National Wildlife Refuge, 1 tag. I believe this is a decrease from 2 tags to 1. Brian, last year there were 424 applicants. Obviously this year dropping to 1 tag. There's not available for non-residents, so if you've been applying for this as a non-resident, make sure you know that there's only 1 tag and you're not eligible. Odds-wise, it's a 1 in 84. Obviously by dropping these tags, it's going to make those numbers, the odds be worse. Last year in 46A East, 46A East, there was a 177 and a 154, a 152, a 160. Going back to 2019, a 175 and a 157, a 169, 160, 168, 158, 173, 171, and 168 and 160. Brian, I don't know much about 46A East. Do you?
Yeah, I hunted it. In 2020 for 7 days with a guy, and it is some seriously desolate country. But with that being said, if I was a diehard sheep hunter and I had time and I could really get after it, I like the unit because it has produced some big rams over the years. And with 1 hunter in there, it'll alleviate some pressure because there's really only 2 primary places that a lot of people focus. Doesn't mean that's the only places where the sheep are at, but not having to deal with someone else in there and then having 30 days to get in there and get after it. If I was really comfortable, but I would have some time, I would definitely be interested in the unit. I wouldn't put in there if I had max points or anything like that, but it can be done and you can kill a good ram there.
Keep in mind all these units here, 46 in the 46A East and West and 46B, you've got potential for illegal, just some activity and safety issues here. 46A West, that's west of Growler Wash, Cabeza Prieta Wildlife Refuge, one tag. 46A West, last year there were 137 applicants. It's a 1 and 104. Last year in 46A West there was a 138. The year before was a 160, a 166, no harvest in 18, a 170 and a 164 when it was a 2-tag unit, 176, 167, and a 151, 154. Brian, what about A West?
I don't know much about it. I mean, I know there's been some good rams killed over the years, but it appears based on everything that's going on that it's trending down. So, but A West and A East are totally dependent on the hunter and the ability of the hunter and the time, really the time you can spend in there. So I have no idea, you know, if 138's indicative of the unit. I would say it's not. Again, it's a one-tag unit, but if you've got time and, you know, you want to hunt a unit where you can kill a big ram, I would definitely consider it, you know, but you're going to work your butt off.
All right, 46B East, they've split into 2 hunts, November 18th to December 8th and December 9th to December 31st, 2 tags in each. Now that is an increase of 3 tags. It prior was just a 1-tag unit. They've split the hunt now and they've done 2 tags each. Last year in 46B East, a 167. The year before that, a 175, a 163, a 157. And before that, it looks like it was 4-tag unit. And 2017. This is another one where obviously they must have flown their surveys and seen enough there that they thought they should increase from 1 to 4. Again, this is part of one of my things of like, how do you go from 1 to 4? Seems drastic to me. I know our buddy Greg Coons guides in this unit, NB West, knows it really, really well. He would probably be one that I should probably get on and talk to him about. Brian, what do you know about 46B East?
I mean, I've spent a couple of days in it, hunting it. It's super remote. I'm surprised to see him go to 4 tags. I guarantee you there's going to be a couple of tags where guys shoot 140 type rams next year, because this ram or this unit requires you to be able to walk 10 to 15 miles every day. So if you're not physically in shape, don't apply for it. I know Greg was the one who his hunter killed a 175 last year in there, and Greg's got that sucker dialed in with horses and stuff like that. I mean, there's an entire mountain range that's completely locked off from it. You know, there's no access to it unless you're able to go 15 to 20 miles to get to it, and it's physically very difficult to do that without water. So I think it's interesting. I mean, it's definitely, I'm surprised to see it jump up so much. I mean, Greg would be more of an expert than I would on that, but it's definitely a pretty drastic jump. I mean, there's definitely good rams in there, but it's dependent on where the moisture's at and where the feed is at.
Then you go with 46B West, Brian, which I know you have a lot of experience in, and another big jump. We've got 2 hunts, 4 tags in each hunt. That is a increase there from 5 tags last year. They're adding 3 tags. They're splitting the hunt to 4 and 4. Last year there were 955 total applicants, which made the draw odds a 1 in 86. I believe this hunt and 46B East, the odds are going to be very, very good. But as you said, Brian, both of these units, like, people really need to understand that the access in these units is not very good, and in both of these units you have to walk a minimum of 3-4 miles across the flats just to get to the mountains. It sounds it doesn't sound that difficult, but when you have to do that day after day and you have to pack that much water in, that's where the problem is. You cannot, it's very difficult to get around and access in these units because of the lack of water. It's not like, oh, well, there's a tank, or, you can get water here or there. That's a big problem. Again, jumping from 5 to 8 seems excessive to me. I'll let you speak on it, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, B West is a little more accessible than B East for sure. Last year, the biggest desert sheep killed by a draw hunter was killed in 46B West, which was 183, almost 184. That was a giant ram. That's going to get the attention of some people. I like B West for a young guy who has time and is in physically good shape, or a guy, anybody in physically good shape with time can go in there and have a successful hunt. I think 8 permits is a ton. 4 and 4 definitely going to be very interesting. When we were there, I think there were 5 hunters in there. We really didn't run into too many issues. But I think there will still be big rams left on the second hunt for sure, because it's very indicative of who draws the tag. But if you're an individual who doesn't have max points, is in physically good shape, got a pretty dependable hunting buddy to go hunt with, I think you can do well here. I think you should consider it, but you need to give yourself the right amount of time, and there's a lot of planning and preparation that goes in to this hunt before you even set foot in the unit. And if you do it right, you can really, I think you can do okay.
Brian, I'm going to let you tackle the Rockies here. Start off.
Okay. Rockies, generally speaking, in the state, we're just kind of average as far as Rockies. We typically kill a couple of 180 type sheep. But we've had some new opportunities open up, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Unit 127 has traditionally been a 1-tag unit. It's going to be a 2-tag unit this year, which opens it up to non-residents. The draws for Rockies, generally speaking, are terrible in our state, just because Rockies are one of the hardest sheep to get a tag for in the world without spending a boatload of money. Last year, the draws were 1 and 590, and so we didn't see too many non-residents apply, so those are kind of your traditional draw odds. Next year, we'll probably see some more non-residents put in for the hat. The 1 tag was drawn last year by a guy, or 1 tag was drawn by an individual in the max, so, nobody else even had a shot. The Unit 127 Unit 1/2 South Fork hunt, that is a new hunt from last year. It's kind of right there along the highway that leads into Eager and stuff, is where those sheep that a lot of people see on the highway there. It's kind of like those rams right in that country. So it'll be interesting. It's going to have 2 tags, but it's going to be a split hunt structure. So it'll be 1 and 1. I would not be surprised to see one of them go in the max. I could see none of them going in the max, because last year's hunter killed, what was it? It was a pretty decent, just a decent ram. I think it was a 178, so it was a really good ram in there last year. So something to just kind of think about what that's going to look like for you. Those Rocky hunts are tough. 6A, traditionally always been an exciting unit. It's where I had my tag back in 2013. It was really good, really good, really good. This is one of those units where I think we could argue that Game and Fish kind of shot it out or let it get hunted out, and so we lost some of the quality. There's still sheep in there, don't get me wrong, but I mean, we really shouldn't be seeing the fact where people are struggling to even kill, rams that are in the 170s. Last year there wasn't a single 170 ram killed. It was 167, 166, and 161. And we know people that definitely hunt and spend a ton of time in that unit. So it's kind of tough to see that starting to happen, because, I mean, really, it's just unfortunate, because it was such a great place to kill big sheep. But it's gonna it's going to be interesting. I think the one thing that is good is that they split the 22 hunt last year, so it forces guys to hunt 22, where traditionally it was 6A and 22, and most everybody was hunting 6A. Last year, the 22 hunters, both hunters were guided. Arizona Custom Hunts guided the 172.5, and then the 169 was Sam Derringer and his crew. So it's rugged country. It's a unit that you can drag out a giant, but it's got some access issues. So
three is going to be claustrophobic in 22. I believe. Three is a lot.
You're going to be on top of each other. So I mean, just be aware of it. I mean, and just remember, you got a sheep tag in your pocket, so it can't be that bad. The other thing is 23, 24A, good unit, produced one big ram 4 or 5 years ago, 181. Last year's ram was 170. That seems to be the trend, somewhere around the 170s. I know we had a 148 last year, but that's not indicative of what's there. It just depends on the hunter, and everyone has different reasons of expectations or different physical capabilities. Droughts 1 in 396, so not terrible when you're talking about Rocky Droughts. That tag last year went to a max point holder, but this year there's 2 tags in there, so who knows what's going to happen. 27 upper blue this last year, which was typically there were 2 tags in it last year. I think this year we will have 2 tags in it. The thing that was kind of interesting on this upper blue hunt is that it can be physically tough to get into some of the country, and so it just depended on how things go. Last year you had a hunter that shot a 184, which was the biggest Rocky killed in the state, and I believe that hunter was guided by Sam Derringer and his crew, so I mean he had some help from some homegrown knowledge if I'm looking at it correctly here. So definitely helps to have some knowledge. Sam and his crew live in that country, so they know it pretty darn good. 27 south, 28 north, 2 hunts, a lot of sheep, fun hunt, can do it on your own. You'd like to have, if you want to kill the biggest ram, you might want to hire someone. Traditionally produces 170 plus rams, and every ram last year, you had a 169 was the smallest, with a 175 being the biggest. Good hunt for bow hunters. I'm sorry, there was a 157 that was killed in there last year. Good hunt for bow hunters. Generally speaking, not great draw odds, but there isn't really any good draw odds in Rockies when you talk Rockies. And none of those tags went, 1 tag went in the max, so I mean it gives you 5 tags for random guys to draw. So Rockies throughout the state, there's not one that I would call standout unit. Yes, 27 upper blue killed a giant last year. Doesn't always happen that way. So just be aware of that. They killed a 182 also in the 27 South, 28 North first hunt, but again, it was guided by Sam Derringer and his crew, so those guys really know where to drag those big rams out of. So if you get a Rocky tag, just enjoy it. You may have a chance to kill a giant. It may just be a fun hunt, see a ton of sheep, and get to kill a nice ram. So, I mean, it's just get the tag. They're so hard to get these days.
For sure. Brian, that was pretty extensive coverage there of the units. I want to give you a chance, if you've got any concluding thoughts here, any words out there, words of wisdom to guys applying and looking into this season here.
I mean, just remember the goal is to get a sheep tag, and if you get a tag, enjoy the hunt. I mean, don't put too much pressure on yourself. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Everybody says they're going to help you. Most of them don't show up to help you, but enjoy the moment because they don't come around that often. And if you're someone that's not in that, I would say 30-plus points, you need to be looking at units that have decent opportunity to draw that are not drawn by max point holders. If I was going to tell anyone that he doesn't have 30-plus points, stay away from the 24s and stay away from the 22s to make the most of your opportunities. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but if you avoid those two, I think you're going to make the most that you can out of the opportunities that you're given. So something to think about, and good luck to all you. And if anybody has any questions, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. You can also send me an email. It's brian.rimsza@hotmail.com, and I'm sure Jay can give you my info if you need it.
I'll link it up for sure. I really appreciate you pounding through these numbers and spending some time with us, and it's always great. I know you're enthusiastic about sheep yourself, and you're one of the fortunate ones that have killed a desert and a Rocky in the state, and so you're pretty much just watching from the sidelines, but you're still fired up about it. It's pretty cool to see. I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for all that you do for the listeners. I know a lot of people reach out to you throughout the year and you help them. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank the listeners for tuning into this podcast. I also want to remind you about the Go Hunt Explorer membership through Memorial Day, the 31st of May. You are going to you pay $50 for the Explorer membership. You get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card back, and you have a full year access to the Go Hunt Explorer, which is the Go Hunt maps. Take advantage of it. Go to gohunt.com. Use the JScott50 promo code. Guys, thanks for supporting the podcast. If you have questions for me, you can go to my Instagram at JScottOutdoors. Send me a direct message. I appreciate all of the support you guys give me, and God bless to everyone out there. Brian, take care, okay, buddy?
Yep, have a good one, Jay.
All right, bye.
Bye.